It was a clip from All the Smoke, which is a very popular podcast with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. They had Deion Sanders on as a guest. And they asked him flat out, did he ever suffer from any mental health issues? And Deion said, he always tried to commit suicide, man. Tried to kill himself. Now, mind you, this was an athlete, two-sport star athlete, baseball and football. I mean, on top of the world. Dude playing in a NFL game, then a World Series baseball game. But when I tell you he's just an all-time great in both sports. So outside looking in, you would think that this guy had it all.
Welcome to the Clear in the Air podcast with D and Q.
I'm D.
And I'm Q. What's up, bro?
My guy.
Yes, sir. Yo, let's just get into it, man. It's October, Mental Health Awareness Month. And one of the things, this is one of the topics that I think we literally could talk about for hours. If we be honest, it's actually the reason why we created the podcast.
Yeah, for sure, bro. Just to kind of get that dialogue going amongst men. And even though it's Mental Health Awareness Month for everybody, we're going to focus more on the men's side, especially with something we're seeing. We'll let you get into that later. I think it's a good thing because we're talking more about mental health. It seems to be more acceptable. It's getting way more exposure. A lot of people are understanding that it is something that needs to be addressed. So that's the thing that I like about it. It's definitely being talked about more. And you're right, this was the platform that, is the reason why we started this platform, I should say.
Right. Now, what's crazy is we didn't initially start off saying that, but when you look at what we do, why we do it, it is the premise of men and mental health, so that we can talk. And one of the issues we've always said is that men just don't talk enough. But speaking of that, how this came about, this particular topic, was you sent me something from, was it All the Smoke?
All the Smoke, yep.
Right. Well, you can talk to us about it.
It was a clip from All the Smoke, which is a very popular podcast with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. They had Deion Sanders on as a guest. And they asked him flat out, did he ever suffer from any mental health issues? And Deion said, he always tried to commit suicide, man. Tried to kill himself. Now, mind you, this was a two-sport star athlete, baseball and football. I mean, on top of the world. Dude playing in a NFL game, then a World Series baseball game. But when I tell you he's just an all-time great in both sports. So outside looking in, you would think that this guy had it all. His own shoe, just on top of the world. Had a little, brief music career, but had everything. So to hear that one day after a game, he tried to commit suicide, literally ran his car off the road. Thankfully, nothing happened. It was just very eye-opening. And what happened was he had just recently got through a divorce and his kids were going to be taken away from him. And he was saying that's the one thing, that's that pure love, the love that your kids have for you and you have for your kids. And he said the thought of that being taken away from him, he couldn't handle it. And he was willing to kill himself. And thankfully, it didn't happen, but it was just very surprising to hear. And, even though we often hear about people, seem to have everything be on top of the world, how can they kill themselves? How can they commit suicide? Right? And so, but to hear Deion, I was like, bro, you got to see this. And then you would say you saw it. And then we was like, we got to talk about that.
Yeah. I think what he said, I can definitely attest to about the children part. There's got to be another episode on its own. It really pops out as well because of his I guess you can say his stardom at this point in his life, because he's no longer the athlete. He's the head coach of the Colorado
Buffaloes.
Yep. So that being said, I don't know if he's ever revealed this information before. At least I haven't heard it.
I hadn't heard it either. And again, this interview was earlier this year. I think it was earlier this year because he had him and his two sons on there.
Right.
And then this was just the part where he did on his own, because he had did it before during the pandemic. It was like a virtual joint. But this was, I believe, earlier this year they went out to Colorado. And Deion Deion's an open book, man. He's very, transparent with his things. He does bring that religious aspect to it, but he's just an open book, and he'll tell you straight up. So that was the first time I had heard of that.
Yeah, I think that's what he said led him to the Lord as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
Just because his agent at the time was saying, "I'm gonna get you some help, and if I can't help you, then you might have to step away from the game so we can get you some real help." He was playing for the Cincinnati Reds at the time, and so his agent got him in, put him in contact with a pastor. I want to say maybe in Columbus, somewhere else in Ohio.
I think
and so the pastor was coming down to visit Deion. Deion was going up there to visit the pastor, and that's when he gave himself to the Lord, man.
True. So let's do this, because I think a lot of times it's real easy to talk about situations outside of yourself. Have you ever dealt with a severe mental health situation? And when we say severe, maybe I can take that word out, because I think severe ranges and can be different according to the person. But have you ever dealt with a situation where you felt like your mental health was compromised?
Hey, bro, you about to have me being very transparent in this.
Well, how about this? I'll start it off.
Okay. I mean, and I can answer it. I don't think so, because I try not to even let myself get to that point. But I will say, I think there was probably 2 times in my life where I felt as though things were out of my control. Mm-hmm. So the situation was able to bother me some. The first situation, I won't even discuss it, but I've talked with you with it before as a brother, but it was a situation where it was possibly an important decision, and I was taken out of that decision process. And so thankfully I was able to come out of that situation unscathed, but it was a very trying time during that process.
And I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. And who knows, maybe down the line when I'm a little more comfortable talking about it, I will. Maybe I could be more specific about it. The second time, and again, I'm going to kind of be transparent here. I think we talked, I may have mentioned it before, but my mom is a breast cancer survivor. But just going through that entire process of, just the whole process, the chemo process, this and that, the finding out about it, and okay, what we need to do, we need to act quickly and all that stuff. And so, just the thought of possibly losing my mom, and that was a trying time, a trying situation. So common denominator in both of those instances are things were taken, things were out of my control. And so when things like that happen, you can kind of, have your mental kind of play with you at times.
So that's interesting in a sense, because that's why I said mental health stuff varies based on the person. What can affect someone else might not affect me, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So you said more or less from the standpoint of you not having control. Mm-hmm. Okay. I haven't heard that before, where that is a situation that can, but I guess when you look at it from that standpoint, yes, I think when we pinpoint that may play a much larger role than what I initially would think.
Really? Like you didn't?
I didn't. Well, let me see. This is part of talking things through.
Okay.
We don't typically, we don't do that. So when not doing that, we don't look at stuff for maybe what it could be.
Yeah, I would just automatically assume that some mental health challenges come from people feeling though they're, things are out of their control. I just think that would be kind of something like that would be, maybe one of the main things. Like,
there's someone very close to me who deals with anxiety extremely bad, mm-hmm. and again, anxiety and mental health can go hand mm-hmm. in hand. So now it makes sense, because I've journeyed with them in their mental health process regarding this, and it is a matter of I can't control these factors, and that gives me anxiety, and that makes me anxious because all of these thoughts I have that I'm thinking about what could happen that I do not have control over. Now, these may be things that don't even happen, and anxiety has to be an entirely different subject as well. So we'll hop off that. But I got you on that. Let me give you
your example.
Mine. For me, both times it was job related. Yeah. And the first time, very young in my career, I was fired for something that I did not do. I think the reason why I went through such, probably because and this is the cool thing, but scary in the moment. I didn't go longer than 30 days without another job. But what made it very scary for me was I was important to at least 3 people at the time. So, and being young and me taking on a certain responsibility, it made me feel like I would not be able to take care of said responsibility. So I guess now to loop in what you said, I guess it is control, I guess. But it didn't necessarily need to be control. It was, at that point, I guess it didn't matter where I worked as long as I was able to take care of what I felt my responsibilities were at the time. So that was that. And then I would say within the last year, same thing. But let me explain why this goes deep actually. Let me explain why it was very tough for me in both of these situations. I don't want to say I'm a people pleaser, but I went to school for hospitality, right? And it's not just because you go to school for hospitality that you're like this, but take that mixed with I'm a person that has a big heart and I want to do for people, and I do want to please people. I do want to make them happy. I do want them that once they interact with me, they can say, man, I had a great experience. Early on, I didn't understand that as much as you want to do and you want to please, you cannot please people. You cannot please 100% of the people 100% of the time. And being young and not having dealt with enough experiences at the time, that was very hard for me. And on top of being accused of something that I did not do. So I kind of felt like, for me, it's not the control, it's something being taken away from you that you value very dearly. So it was as if I was heartbroken internally, mentally, right? You took away my ability to provide. But you impacted me. You can go get another job. But you impacted me in that particular industry because of that, it impacted me in my future as well.
And it was early in your working career.
Exactly. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
That's interesting, though, because your examples were work-related and then mine were personal. So see how it can come from different angles.
Exactly.
Yours was professional. Let me say that, professional, and mine were personal.
Exactly. Let me throw in a personal.
But probably both affected us the same way. It could have had lasting effects, right?
Yep. So I'm gonna give this, and I'm gonna be brief with it, just because I don't want to, you know what I mean. And then I went through a divorce, and that had its own mental stuff with it. And go back to what Deion said, because there were children involved, right? So either children that I helped bring into this world, or children that I helped to raise. And so again, that's
that. It was both for you.
Exactly. And so now again, see, for me, when something is taken away from you that you value dearly, that mentally, that tears me up. Even now thinking about it, I'm trying not to get emotional.
Right.
Even now thinking about it, dog, it still has an impact to this day. I had a conversation with my oldest daughter, who's 13, and it was kind of around that. And it goes back to what Deion was saying. I went from seeing you every day of your life to now the court has made a decision. Just a whole nother conversation of seeing this child 4 days a month. That's the type of stuff. Again, something or someone that you value deeply that you kind of feel like a loss. And it's not a one-time loss. You lose a job, bet I can go out there and get another job. I can go out there, I can grind for money. And may have it better than I had it before. But when you have people that can't be replaced, and it feels as if it's been taken away from you, it just messes with you in a different way. So shout out to Deion Sanders, prime, for really being vulnerable, and also for allowing us to say and look, because that's what it makes you do when you see that clip. It makes you say, have I had a situation? Because I've never asked you that before.
And here's what's funny, bro. We talked about things are taken out of your control. When you talked about the situation, think about it. The court has now made that decision. They took that control out of your hands. They made the decision, and now 4 days out the month. You see what I mean?
Yeah, bro.
So it's tough, man. It was tough. It was tough. Again, you know, the thought of me possibly losing my mom, like, that was a tough thing for me. You know what I mean? And again, we don't have control over when we out of here, you know?
Yep.
But at that time, the thought of, you know, her not being here anymore at that time, it just wasn't, you know.
And for you, I think it would hit you either way. But definitely, like you said, at that time, I think that's another thing too, timing. There's never good timing for certain things.
Right.
But like when it's certain things that you just really like you're either in a groove, a good groove, and something like this comes and smacks you upside your head, or bro, when you done taking loss after loss after loss, and then something else happens. You know what this also makes me think of, bro? This also makes me think of Tyrese. And we didn't talk about this, but Tyrese was on a Breakfast Club maybe like a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And on that, again, see what happens when the question is asked, because all we were doing was clowning Tyrese because he was getting online and he was, you know, sharing certain things and crying, and we just thought he was a fool. The whole time we didn't realize in the span of all this time, he lost his mom. I think he lost his sister. He went through a divorce, and then his wife had a miscarriage.
And then still, Paul Walker's lost. Yeah, Tyrese went through a lot, and he brought up a lot of it. You know, you always see the clip where Charlamagne tried to give him he threw the tissue. But he was like, bro, you know, when you go through a divorce, don't just check on the woman. Because a man is going through that too, bro. You know, when somebody dies, you know, he made some great points in that speech, bro.
Yeah.
And again, because he does so many other things, we kind of dismiss him. Or it would just be like, you know, Tyrese just being Tyrese, right? But that joint hit home, you know?
Yeah.
That joint hit home. And when he said, you know, black men cry. He was like, cry, get it out. That was tough. I'm glad you brought that up, because we had talked about doing it back then, but like you said, it's been a few months. I know it was like midsummer, right? Midsummer, yeah. But that was really tough. Well, it was dope that he did that.
Right.
And for us to talk about it.
For sure. Yo, man, I think we can clear the air on this. We go back to what Tyrese said, black men cry, not a statement. That was in the encouragement to do it.
Telling us to do that.
The Dear Son Network, I just saw a clip he put up with his co-host where again, dads will tell us, what you crying for? But it's a rhetorical question. It's not a question that you answer. What you crying for? Get up and be a man. Crying is not going to do anything. And they refuted crying will, because it provides a release. Now, it's one thing to say you go around just crying about everything. But again, even if you need to do that in private, and then when you come out, you got somebody to talk to, you have talked to someone, therapist, whatever it may be, we need all of that to be able to do all of that. And for so long it's been just be tough, just be tough. Well, y'all don't want to be tough. And that's why I love when Tyrese says, I don't need no tissue, bro. I don't need no tissue. I think the vulnerability of Tyrese, people like Tyrese, people like Coach Prime, to share experiences that they've had, especially in a social media era, because all we do is highlight the best parts. We highlight when we look great. And not that you necessarily would, but we don't talk about the parts that have us in the crib going through. But when we outside, we look great. But when we inside, we literally hibernating on some crazy stuff, going through. And then the question, like Tyrese is saying, who checking up on you?
And you know, you be saying the thing, check on your strong friend, right?
Please do.
Yeah. The friend that's always there for everybody, the friend that's always happy, and it was like, check on them, because you never know what they're dealing with, especially in private.
Always. Well, we got a question for you before we close up. Have you gone through any mental health breakdowns, situations where you felt like your mental health was compromised? Where did that come from? Because I think that's super important to say, why did this impact me the way in which it did? We're not mental health professionals,
By no means.
but I don't think you need to be a professional to start the conversation, which is what we are doing, which is what Tyrese did, which is what they did on all the smoke with Coach Prime. We gotta talk to somebody. We gotta get it out, because if not, we will go insane. We want to ask you all to do us a favor though. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay? Make sure that you're also checking out the audio experience on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But then for clips, short clips that you'll see, make sure you're checking us out on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. It's been real, bro.
My dog. Love you, brother.
Love you too, homie.
Peace.